Over 1,500 years ago, at the foot of Wuzhou Hill in Pingchang, the capital of the Northern Wei dynasty, today's Datong, in Shanxi province, an astonishing Buddhist grotto complex known as the Yungang Grottoes began to emerge. Like many of humanity's most beautiful creations, these treasures were born out of adversity. They represent the resurgence of Buddhist art after a series of complex historical struggles. After Emperor Tai Wu of the Northern Wei, Turba Tao, began a purge of Buddhism, Buddhist temples across his domain were abandoned. Enthusiasm for Buddhism diminished under political pressure. The Xianbei population living in Pingchang no longer worshipped the Buddha, but maintained their traditional belief in the Western heaven. In the year 450, en route from Pingchang to their altars in the western suburbs, worshippers came across a collection of impressive stelas. They were part of a massive cultural project initiated by Sui Hao. Inscribed on the stelae were not only the 5 classics, a core text of Chinese culture, but also the national records, a book recording the history of the Northern Wei dynasty. Sui Hao and his father, Sui Hong, were among the emperor's most trusted Han officials. Sui Hao once boasted that while compiling national records, he adhered to the Han historian's tradition of documenting truthfully without withholding truth for the sake of the venerable. In the book, Sui Hao detailed the development of the Turba clan of the Xianbei people, the founders of the Northern Wei, without shying away from documenting their old tribal customs regarding marital relations. For those Xianbei who had gradually sinicized, this unvarnished record felt like a deliberate insult. Having conquered the Central Plains and integrated with the Han culture, they were reluctant to look back on their ancestors' life, so Sui Hao had touched a raw nerve by shedding light on their past. However, some experts believe that this isn't the real reason why the Xianbei nobles were enraged. The accusation that Sui Hao had exposed the old customs of the Xianbei's ancestors was merely a pretext to take down high-ranking Han officials, and therefore abolish the principle of primogeniture adopted by Turba Gui, along with other sinicized customs.
因为道地来国史的基本主题，并不说是我要怎么如实的记录婚姻关系，它是要建立我们父子相传的这种宗脉血统，为皇权的父子相系提供理论根据，但是这不是事实。 是吧？或者这很大程度上不是事实啊！本来这个是推举的啊，你现在你这是好的，我们自古以来都是父子相传的，哦，那这是非常非常的这个反传统的一件事情。
Although an imperial dynastic system had been established by the Northern Wei at that time, the Xianbei nobles were still powerful.
当北族的贵族大人们浩浩荡荡跑到西郊祭天的时候，当然是满腔的热血，满腔对于祖宗的这种缅怀和对于传统的这种光荣，都洋溢在自己的全身上下，洋溢在每一个老人到孩子的这个心中。啊，那么回来路上或者去的路上，我们又看到了这样的一种国史。 它是刻在碑上，而且就在那个边上，所以今天我们不太清楚，为什么这个碑就一定要立到西郊祭天的路边上？ 但是我觉得这是一件很刺激人的东西。
The Xianbei nobles had long-standing grievances against Han officials. The Steelies added fuel to the fire. They demanded that Sui Hao be severely punished. Turba Tao, although heavily reliant on Sui Hao, did not dare to provoke the still powerful Xianbei nobles. On July 5th, 450 AD, Turba Tao ordered the execution of Sui Hao and his extended families, including the Lu family of Fanyang. They were all important Han scholar official families and strong supporters of Confucian culture in northern China.
他是做了这个汉胡对立的牺牲品。太武帝的基本政策是要汉化改革，他必须去贯彻这种汉化改革的政策和措施。但是要推进汉化改革，就会跟保守的北族形成对立面。如果这种矛盾被管控在一定范围之内，大家是相安无事的。但是当这个矛盾管控不了了，激化了，这就肯定是需要有所谓替罪羊，需要让这种矛盾有一个鲜血的出口，把局势平稳下。
In the early winter of 450 AD, a few months after Sui Hao was executed, Turba Tao led an army of 600,000 to conquer the south. It took the Northern Wei army only 3 months to reach the Guabu mountain, just across a river from the southern dynasty's capital, Jiankang. Turba Tao even established a palace there. However, just as he was about to conquer the southern dynasty, Turba Tao suddenly retreated and took his army back to Pingchang. The historical records have failed to offer an explanation for Turba Tao's sudden move. However, some scholars believe that it's because Turba Tao suspected the crown prince, Turba Huang, who had remained in Pingchang, of plotting a coup. When Turba Tao issued the decree to destroy Buddhism, Turba Huang tried to persuade the renowned monk Tan Yao to retreat to the mountains and bide his time. There are no historical records explicitly stating that Turba Huang plotted a rebellion, yet there are subtle clues. Merely 3 months after Turba Tao's return to Pingchang, the 23-year-old crown prince Turba Huang died, apparently from stress. He was honored posthumously as the Emperor Jingmu. Legend has it that after Turba Huang's death, Turba Tao was consumed with guilt. He was furious with the eunuch Zong Ai, who had informed on Turba Huang. Sensing impending danger, Zong Ai decided to strike first. In the year 452, Turba Tao, aged 44, was assassinated by his own eunuch. The political unrest had greatly weakened the Northern Wei. After Turba Tao's death, his grandson, Turba Jun, ascended the throne. Seeing how the persecution of Buddhism had destabilized society, Turba Jun issued a decree 2 months into his reign, restoring Buddhism throughout the territory.
那佛教在当时是老百姓心中的宗教，太武帝灭佛当然有他的政治用意，但是他某种程度上也是在跟人心对着干，所以文成帝这是在争取民众啊，不是说是我要倡导怎么样，而是老百姓要这个东西，所以皇帝也要这个东西，而且要比他们表现得更虔诚，这才能做一个受到人民拥护的皇帝啊，是吧？这是这样的一个逻辑。
Buddhism recovered during Turba Jun's rule. Temples were reconstructed across the empire, and chanting was heard inside them once again. Amidst trials and tribulations, the people found solace in their faith. The wounds inflicted by violence were gradually healing. Over 1,500 years ago, a young emperor was on a tour outside the city when suddenly his white imperial horse left the formation and approached the crowd that had paused to bow. It gently held the hem of a monk's robe in his mouth. This monk was none other than Tan Yao, who once sought refuge in the forests during Emperor Taiwu's suppression of Buddhism. The young emperor was Tuobao Jun, the fourth emperor of the Northern Wei dynasty. The story of the miraculously inspired horse is recorded in the Book of Wei, with its authenticity unverified. Tan Yao, once brought to the imperial palace, proposed seeking blessings for the emperors. He suggested carving out 5 caves on Wuzhou Hill and building in each cave a giant Buddha statue modelled after the 4 Northern Wei dynasty emperors, from the founding emperor, Tuobao Gui, to the reigning emperor, Wenchang, as well as the crown prince, Tuobao Huang, who had died before acceding to the throne. Tan Yao's plan was simultaneously to propagate Buddhism and to extol his Northern Wei rulers. As a result, the construction of the Yungang Grottoes began. Professor Su Bai of Peking University's School of Archaeology and Museology was a leading figure in China's Buddhist archaeology. In 1947, he stumbled upon a stele from the Jin dynasty, which documented restoration efforts at the Yungang Grottoes at that time. It also provided a brief account of the original construction process. Until this discovery, there were no records of such work.
在一本书里头，发现了一个近代的时候写云冈历史的一篇文章，文章很长。这篇文章过去没人见过，这我发现以后，我就把它理出来了。
In 1978, based on the records from the Jin dynasty stele and his on-site research at Yungan, Su Bai wrote an article called A Tentative Discussion of the Periodization of the Yungang Grottoes. According to him, the first phase consisted of the 5 caves, numbered 16 to 20, that were excavated under the guidance of Tan Yao following Emperor Wenchang's restoration of Buddhism. The second phase spanned from Emperor Wenchang's death in 465 AD until 494 AD, when Emperor Xiao Wen moved the capital from Pingcheng to Luoyang. The subsequent constructions were classified as a third phase. Tan Yao didn't design the Yungang Grottoes on a whim. The grotto temples in India, the birthplace of Buddhism, originally served as dwellings for monks. As Buddhism spread to the Gandhara region, present-day Pakistan and Afghanistan, and once colonized by Alexander's Greeks, the Gandhara caves and sculptures took on a strong Greco-Roman influence.
因为亚历山大东征啊，就打到什么呢？已经打到葱岭之西。葱岭西边，实际上跨过我们的这个葱岭，然后西边不远的一个城市就叫亚历山大。那么它这样呢，就是当地就留下来了一大批的这个希腊化的移民。那么这批移民呢，他们呢有雕琢神像的这个传统，但是他当时呢，你如果佛教不传进去，他也不会说是我雕琢佛像，我可能雕其他像。
Typically, Gandhara Buddha statues feature wavy hair, commonly seen in Greek sculptures, a tuft of white hair between the eyebrows, and a halo encircling the head. The statue's attire resembles the long robes worn by ancient Roman senators or philosophers. During the late Han Dynasty, the earliest forms of Buddhist grotto and sculptural art from Gandhara began to spread to Xinjiang and Gansu in China via the Silk Road. Subsequently, with the expansion of the Northern Wei dynasty, These arts reached its capital, Pingchang, along with Buddhist scriptures and monks. Tan Yao hailed from northern Liang, a kingdom vanquished by the Northern Wei dynasty. Located in the Hershey Corridor, northern Liang was once a stronghold of Buddhist culture in northern China, so Tan Yao was no stranger to grotto temples. He organized thousands of craftsmen of different ethnicities. Besides Han Chinese, there were the Xiongnu, Xianbei, Jie, Di and Qiang, the so-called Five Barbarians, as well as those from Central Asia and India. Agrarian and nomadic peoples, who hadn't got along in the past, created a new culture here together. Their weapons were turned into chisels. The Buddha's smile melted away the estrangement and hatred. Mao Zhe is a sculptor working at the Yungang Research Institute. For over 20 years, he has spent countless hours at the grottos. Deeply admiring Tan Yao, he had always wanted to create a statue in honor of Tan Yao. Tan Yao is an enigmatic historical figure, with no clear records of his birthplace or exact dates of birth and passing. Mao Zhe enjoys wandering in the grottos, trying to picture Tan Yao and imagine that distant era. The Yungang Grottoes stood as the largest Buddhist art project in the world at the time. Over 1,500 years ago, countless craftsmen carved into Wuzhou Hill day and night. The rock on the hill is sandstone, with a hard upper and a soft lower element, perfect for the carving. Even so, making large-scale grottos using simple tools like axes and chisels was a daunting task. Cave 3 boasts a towering front wall 25 meters high, making it the largest cave at Yungang. Its layout resembles that of a complex maze. However, aside from a few Buddha statues crafted during the Tang dynasty, it remains largely empty. Clearly, the construction of Cave 3 was halted abruptly. More fortunately, the original excavation site has been preserved to this day, providing invaluable insights for studying the carving techniques of the Northern Wei grottos. These grooves were left behind by the craftsmen when they were extracting rock. The grooves crisscross, segmenting the rock into rectangular or circular shapes. The craftsmen drove wedges in along these grooves to pry out the blocks. So where did the construction of the entire grottos begin? Archaeologists speculate that the craftsmen at Yungang first assembled plank road-like scaffolding on the hillside. They then began carving the basic shape of the grotto from top to bottom. Inside Cave 3, chisel marks from the Northern Wei excavation can be seen near the window. Over 1,500 years ago, the craftsmen started the entire excavation from this very window. The carving of the Buddha statues began from the top. Craftsmen began by sculpting the head of the primary Buddha statue on the designated rock and worked their way progressively downward.
因为那么大的造像从上往下确实很难掌握比例，但是我们也想着说这太神奇了，这工匠居然从那10几米大的佛像从头顶开始凿到脚下能凿得如此的完美。但是第三窟告诉我们不是这样的，它还是像这个提前有设计，提前有规划，然后按照这个设计规划，然后东窟里头就给它大的造像都给它预留出配料来，就是哪儿要凿，哪个地方要凿什么，就雏形都出来了，大的，然后从上到下依次精雕细琢。 因为你比如说大的造像10几米的佛像先预留出来以后，它的工作面就是它的实际上这个造像的本身，最后就是精雕细作，就是从上往下依次的给它下来完成。
Scholars have assessed the workload for the 5 grottos in Yungang associated with Tan Yao. Cave 19, the largest among them, involved excavating 8,870 cubic meters, necessitating over 2,300 days for completion and roughly 190,000 workers. In contrast, Cave 16, the smallest among them, with an excavation of 2,610 cubic meters, took more than 1,900 days and over 70,000 workers to complete. During that period, Tan Yao lived on Wuzhou Hill, dedicating his time to translating Buddhist scriptures and supervising the construction process. Caves 16 through 20 of the Yungang Grottoes were carved under his guidance, hence their name, the 5 Caves of Tan Yao. These caves exhibit shared architectural features. Their exterior walls are intricately decorated with Buddha figures, and each is basically shaped like an elliptical dome. The statues predominantly represent the Buddhas of the past, present and future, underscoring the long history and eternity of Buddhism. The hallmarks of Gandhara Buddhist art are also evident in all 5 caves. Art historians believe the Yungang Grottoes to be the most magnificent and essential early representation of Chinese Buddhism that spread along the Silk Road. They represent the zenith of Gandhara Buddhist art after its eastward transmission to China. Many argue that the 5 caves of Tan Yao, bearing the hallmarks of Gandhara art, symbolize the first 5 emperors of the Northern Wei dynasty. Which statue represents which emperor and which cave was carved first has been a matter of debate. The generally accepted view suggests that since Buddhism originated from the West, the statues in the Buddhist grottos, likewise, are arranged with the westernmost being the most revered. When Tan Yao initially designed the 5 caves, he naturally prioritized the statue of the founding emperor, giving it the most esteemed position and initiating the excavation process there. Hence, it's widely accepted that the statue in Cave 20 was the first to be sculpted at Yungang and represents the Northern Wei's first emperor, Ba Gui. The excavation began from the westernmost Cave 20 and sequentially moved eastward, with Cave 16 being completed last. However, other scholars noted that among the 5 caves of Tan Yao, Cave 19 is the grandest. Its magnificent main Buddha statue stands at 16.8 meters tall, making it the tallest statue within this group of caves. Notably, Cave 19 is not on the same plane with Cave 20. Just outside Cave 19, about 5 meters off the ground, are 2 subsidiary caves, apparently to serve as assistants and guardians. None of the other 4 caves have these subsidiary caves, which are an innovation of Chinese Buddhist caves. This led some to believe that Cave 19, instead of Cave 20, was dedicated to the founding emperor. However, the biggest problem with this conjecture is its incongruence with the set of etiquette. If the westernmost cave is not prioritized, then based on the Jiao Mu system, the central cave should be prioritized. Yet Cave 19 isn't the central cave. This conundrum was eventually addressed thanks to a discovery in Cave 20. Yuan Shaozhong, a research fellow at the Yungang Research Institute, lived in a courtyard right in front of Cave 20 when he was young. It's fair to say that he grew up with Cave 20. As he recalls, the Buddha statue of Cave 20 from his childhood looked different. It looked more like the one in the photos taken by the French scholar Emmanuel Edouard Chevanet over a century ago. These are his photos of Cave 20 and its main statue. From them one can tell that Cave 20 a century ago looked completely different. At that time, the knees of the main statue were buried in a thick layer of soil, and many earthen residential houses could be seen in front of the main statue. Cave 20 and the entire grotto's site were in a state of dilapidation. Yet these photos also show the past Cave 20 and the present one have a lot in common. In Buddhist statuary, the slightly smaller figures flanking the main statue are known as attending bodhisattvas. The attending bodhisattva on the western side of Cave 20 has vanished, but the main statue and the eastern attending bodhisattva remain largely intact, as shown in Chavanet's photographs. At that time, only the main statue of Cave 20 was exposed, while the other four in the other four caves were concealed by cave walls. People get to view, admire, and appreciate the exposed Buddha statue, a masterpiece of unparalleled beauty, without limitation of space. However, scholars speculate that this open viewing actually resulted from an unintended cave collapse. This means that, much like the other four caves, Cave 20 once had a front wall, doors and windows, but they had crumbled before Chavanet's photographed them. This collapse also resulted in the loss of the western attending bodhisattva. There were numerous speculations as to the time of the collapse. Some conjectured it occurred as early as the Liao and Jin dynasties. However, a large-scale cleanup in the 1990s completely changed this perception. Unlike today, the ground in front of Cave 20 of the Yungang Grottoes was not hardened in the past. When the rainy season came, due to the well-developed underground water system in the grottoes, capillary water from the rain would cause damage to the caves. In 1991, the Cultural Relic Protection Department decided to remedy the situation by hardening the soil in the front of Cave 20. An archaeological excavation was conducted before the hardening began, and an unexpected discovery was made.
发现了一个台阶，在台阶下面了，同时发现了一个弟子头像，特别精美的一个弟子头像。这现在在云冈是以后保存最完整的一个，就是在云冈博物馆陈列中保存最完整的一具照相头像。所以鉴于这种情况呢，就立即向国家文物局汇报，国家文物局就说马上就应该进行考古发掘。
In the 1940s, while the residential houses were relocated, the soil layer in front of the cave remained untouched. The cleanup in 1991 unearthed almost 2 meters deep of soil in front of the cave. Photos from the 1990s showed that the soil in front of the cave was basically level with the interior of the cave, revealing the Buddha's feet in their entirety. As the cleanup neared its conclusion, lots of stone blocks were discovered within the deepest strata dating back to the Northern Wei dynasty. These blocks were none other than the remnants of the collapsed front wall. This led to an astonishing revelation. Cave 20's front wall didn't fall during the Liao and Jin dynasties, but rather during the Northern Wei dynasty, shortly after the original construction of the grottoes. Some experts suspect that perhaps in Tan Yao's original plan, Cave 19 was the center of the 5 caves, representing the founding emperor, Turba Gui, while Cave 18 symbolized Emperor Ming Yuan, Turba Se, and Cave 20 depicted Emperor Tai Wu, Turba Tao. However, when carving out Cave 20, the craftsmen encountered geological challenges that soon led to the collapse of the front wall. Consequently, they had to move Cave 16, which was originally planned to be to the west of Cave 20, to its easternmost. Among the 5 caves, Cave 17, believed to have been dedicated to the Crown Prince Turba Huang, is distinctive. The statue represents the Maitreya Bodhisattva with crossed legs. The slender Bodhisattva wears a large crown, with a pearl bracelet adorning his right arm. Interestingly, he isn't wearing traditional Buddhist clothes, but rather the clothing of ancient Indian nobles.
这个很大程度上就是说明云冈代表的是中国的早期佛教艺术。那么这个早期的佛教艺术，很大程度上它就吸收了很多的印度的文化在里边。所以在云冈石窟早期洞窟当中，我们能看到印度的风格，能看到希腊的艺术特色，也能看到波斯的一些文化在里边。
Unfortunately, this statue has been severely damaged by both nature and human actions. Yet, from the remnants, one can still picture a Maitreya statue of extraordinary appearance in fine attire. It is the first cross-legged Maitreya statue in the Yungang Grottoes, a precursor to similar sculptures. Standing outside Cave 17, it is easy to discover that its floor is roughly a metre below ground level. Consequently, the crossed legs of the statues are positioned below ground level, setting it apart from the main Buddha statues in other caves. Was this below the ground position an error in the designing or carving processes? Or was it planned this way for certain reasons? Additionally, the Maitreya is the future Buddha. But in Cave 17, judging from its attire, the Maitreya of the statue is depicted as a bodhisattva, yet to attain full enlightenment. This raised the question, why did Tan Yao choose a Maitreya to symbolize Turba Huang and depict him as a bodhisattva, yet to reach Buddhahood? It's speculated that this was because Turba Huang died at the age of 23, with his father, Turba Tao, holding him under suspicion. He died as a crown prince without ascending the throne. It was only after his death that he was honored as Emperor Jingmu. Perhaps that's why he couldn't be depicted on par with the preceding emperors, prompting Tan Yao to portray him in a humble position below ground level, and as a bodhisattva instead of a Buddha.
因为我们说，从云冈的这个昙曜武窟的雕刻理念来讲，代表的都是皇帝，都应该是以佛的形式来出现。那么这个石窟窟就出现了一尊菩萨像，头戴花冠，两脚交叉。这种造像呢，我们通常把它叫交角弥勒，而且它不是交角弥勒佛，是交角弥勒菩萨。正是因为这个原因呢，我们就说它没有成佛，是一个菩萨像。它代表哪个皇帝呢？这样对应下去以后，就把它对应在了这个太子景穆帝拓跋晃，一给它对应就对应上来。所以呢，这个造像就把它说成是这个拓跋晃。
In addition to the cross-legged Maitreya statue, Cave 17 boasts 2 grand niches on either side, each housing a Buddha, one seated, representing the past, and the other standing, symbolizing the present. Together with the central Maitreya, the future Buddha, they are referred to as the Buddhas of the 3 times. Even though Turba Huang never became emperor, the craftsmen sculpted the statue representing him with the meticulousness reserved for imperial ancestral temples. Thus, in the Buddha niches, whether it's the lotus leaves, the small Buddha figures, the flying apsaras, or the flame-like patterns, all are remarkable. The donors, with their full figures and elegant attire, embody the serene beauty of the Buddhist realm. Mao Zhe has been tirelessly sculpting the Tan Yao statue for several years. Despite his efforts, he still finds himself dissatisfied and has had to start over many times. It seems he's unable to depict the Tan Yao he envisions. During moments of frustration, he seeks solace in the 5 caves. Standing before Tan Yao's masterpieces, he feels the presence of that distant era, seeing how the monks saw emperors come and go with complete detachment. The easternmost cave among the 5 caves is Cave 16. From the cave's architectural features, Cave 16 shares common characteristics with the other 4 caves: an elliptical plane, a grand vaulted ceiling, and a towering human Buddha statue facing south.
太阳武窟的窟形它不是属于马蹄形穹窿顶吗？但是这个窟形呢，就包括梁思成也好，包括素白先生也好，他们就认为这个在这之前呢就没有这种窟形，他觉得应该是不是平城的这个工匠独创的。后来呢，在平城考古中呢就发现了毡帐的模型，就出土了两种毡帐模型。我也是这样认为，但是后来我发现也有专家也这么认为，就认为太阳武窟的这个窟形是仿这个毡帐的模型而来的。
The main statue in Cave 16 is 13.5 meters tall, standing barefoot on a lotus pedestal. It represents Emperor Wencheng, Tuobaojun, the 4th emperor of the Northern Wei. He appears young and handsome. His Ushnisha is wavy, reminding one of ancient Greek statues. The left hand of this grand Buddha statue particularly showcases a beauty rare in stone sculptures. The statue is well proportioned and extraordinarily realistic. As one gazes at it, one can almost feel the Buddha's suppleness and warmth of his skin.
人形体当中创作难度最大的应该就是手的雕刻。如果有机会我们去看到敦煌看那个张大千临摹的很多的那个造像都是那个手专门拿出手来雕刻，所以手的创作是很难的。那么绘画的创作难，云冈石窟又是一种圆雕的雕刻，这个就更难了。另外就是高空作业来完成这个手如此的逼真，我们细细的到它跟前看，它那个指甲盖都刻得特别的精美，这个是非常的难。
This tall Buddha statue has an elongated finger and stands upright, which facilitates the display of the style and folds of the clothing. Although over the passage of 1,000 years the statue has eroded and crumbled away from below the knee, the intact upper half still gives a glimpse of its overall sartorial aesthetic. Yet within this statue, which possesses characteristics of Gandhara art, distinct Chinese elements can be seen.
那么这尊像呢，它最大的一个特点就是它的服饰非常的漂亮，它出现了一个和早期那个佛装完全不同的一种形式。我们早期看到的那种偏塔右肩式的或者是通肩式的袈裟，在这个佛像身上它出现了一个汉装，就胸前打了一个结子，像一个领带的形式。很多人认为说中国人在1500年前就穿上了这个领带的服饰。
In fact, the attire of the main Buddha in Cave 16 is of Han design. This style of clothing dates back to the Han dynasty, when Confucian scholars wore robes with wide sleeves fastened at the chest with a knot. In the mid-5th century, this style of clothing was popular in the southern regions of China. It was the influence of the southern Han culture on the north that led to the main Buddha of Cave 16 being robed in Han attire. On the Lunar New Year's Day in 460 AD, a grand celebration was being held in the Imperial Palace of the Northern Wei dynasty. It was on this day that Tuo Baojun proclaimed a change in the dynasty's title to He Ping, meaning peace. In keeping with this title, the policy of tolerance and reconciliation that had been in effect for 8 years had eased social tensions in Northern Wei society, leading to a rapid resurgence both in its economy and in culture. Around the same time in Europe, circumstances were notably different. On Christmas Eve in 496 AD, Clovis I, the ruler of the Frankish kingdom, was baptized by the Roman Pope, formally converting to Christianity. From that moment, Christianity started to intervene in the political affairs of various European nations. After several hundred years of development, it eventually achieved a position of authority above secular rule. Throughout the long Middle Ages, while the Church preserved and created culture, under its dominant influence, any thoughts or beliefs that did not align with Christian doctrine were denounced as heresy. In contrast, the history of religious persecution in ancient China is extremely brief. Different religions, under the guidance of secular regimes, developed equally and intermingled harmoniously. During the Tang dynasty, besides Buddhism and Taoism, 3 foreign religions were venerated by royalty: Zoroastrianism and Manichaeism, both of Persian origin, and Nestorianism, a branch of Christianity. It was this blending of diverse cultures that led to the brilliance of ancient Chinese civilization. The foundation for the Tang dynasty's broad-minded and inclusive spirit can be traced back to the era of the Northern Wei dynasty, a time of rebuilding order amid chaos. Tuo Baojun was a gentle ruler, skilled at mending social rifts. However, this mild-mannered emperor had a formidable wife, Empress Dowager Feng. Nevertheless, during his reign, she often exhibited her softer and more delicate side. Empress Dowager Feng came from the royal family of the state of Northern Yan. After Northern Yan was annexed by the Northern Wei, a young Feng was brought into the court as a maid. There she met her savior, Empress Dowager Chang, the ruler of the harem. Chang was Tuo Baojun's nanny, and her elevation to the status of an Empress Dowager from a nanny is unique in Chinese history, only seen in the Northern Wei dynasty. This was because the Northern Wei had a tradition of killing the crown prince's mother. The Northern Wei royal family strongly disliked women getting involved in politics. Thus, the custom grew of executing the biological mother after her son was appointed crown prince. This peculiar practice is said to have been established by Emperor Dao Wu, Tuo Baogui, in the year 409 AD, when Tuo Baogui found himself plagued by political struggles and health issues. The empire he founded was thriving and had basically conquered northern China. Relying on the civil service system designed by Han Chinese, the governance was smooth, and his traditionally nomadic subjects were gradually adapting to a settled farming lifestyle. The capital, Pingchang, was prosperous. However, when he wanted to follow the Han tradition of passing the throne to his eldest son, Tuo Baosi, all underlying political tensions came to the forefront. For dynasties in the Central Plains, the system of primogeniture, whereby the eldest legitimate son inherits the throne, had been a tradition followed for thousands of years. However, the Xianbei, a nomadic tribe, had always adhered to a system of tribal elections and the traditions of agnatic seniority, where a ruler's younger brother ascends the throne after he dies. Since the mothers of the princes usually came from other tribes, Xianbei nobles were wary of them. The nobles of the Tuobao tribe strongly opposed Tuo Baogui's idea of passing the throne to his eldest son.
他们是他用来统治汉族的基本依靠力量，但是他们经常牵着他的手脚，不让他搞传子制，不让他成为一个尊子君主，他让他相对要民主一些，要推举大事儿要商量。
Though invincible on the battlefield, Tuobao Gui felt helpless in the face of internal opposition. He increasingly relied on a popular elixir of the time, 5 minerals powder, to alleviate his anxiety. While it was claimed that the medicine could prolong life, it's actually toxic and highly addictive.
据说服50散以后的一种感受是，就像一把烧红的刀子横亘在胸腹之间一样，是这种感觉。这真是一个坐卧不安，这个没有办法生活这样的一种感觉，再加上这样的一种政治氛围，道武帝的神经实际上已经开始崩溃。崩溃的表现就是他杀人，他经常成批的杀人。
The tormented Tuobao Gui, after much contemplation, finally devised a solution to his predicament. However, this remedy only led to an ongoing series of tragedies in the Northern Wei court. The Book of Wei records that in 409 AD, Tuobao Gui named his eldest son, Tuobao Se, as the crown prince, and then ordered the execution of his mother. Tuobao Gui told his son that when Emperor Wu of the Han dynasty intended to designate Liu Fuling as the crown prince, he executed the latter's mother, Lady Go Yi, to prevent her from interfering in state affairs and allowing her family to monopolize power. You're the rightful heir to the throne, so I followed Han Emperor Wu's example. This will be for your own good in the long run. When Tuobao Se eventually became emperor and decided to pass the throne to his own eldest son, Tuobao Tao, he too ordered the execution of Tuobao Tao's mother, Lady Du. Tuobao Huang's mother, Lady He, and Tuobao Jun's mother, Lady Yuju Liu, were both executed this way.
母亲是一个纽带，可以通过这个纽带，母族可以通过这个纽带来强有力的影响这个新皇帝。那么我把母亲杀掉，这个纽带就切断了。那纽带切断了以后，这个小孩子还是需要抚养长大，所以他需要有保姆。这个保姆往往取得跟母亲相近的地位，在北魏历史上给了他一个专门的名字，叫保太后。
After Tuobao Jun's birth mother was executed, his nanny Chang was elevated to the position of Empress Dowager. Subsequently, she hand-picked the 10-year-old Feng to be a consort for Tuobao Jun. A few years later, when Tuobao Jun ascended the throne, the birth mother of his crown prince was put to death, and Feng was entrusted with the boy's care. Consequently, Feng not only became Tuobao Jun's empress, but also the nominal mother of the crown prince. Empress Dowager Chang, in essence, had put Feng in a position that would determine the Northern Wei's destiny. Feng would not only determine the fate of the Northern Wei Empire, but also profoundly influence the Yungang Grottoes. However, before she rose to power, she never met with Tan Yao, the progenitor of the Grottoes. Standing before the 5 caves of Tan Yao, Mao Zedong can't help but think about the impact these colossal Buddha statues had on the Northern Wei Empire when they were created over 1,500 years ago. These statues, the earliest works in the Yungang Grottoes, reflect the strong influence from Gandhara art, the raw power of the Xianbei people, and the elements of the Central Plains culture. While later generations regard them as the most crucial link in the spread of Buddhist art in China, they also serve as an everlasting monument to monk Tan Yao.